Okay, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me in the back? Okay, wonderful. Welcome to Save the Bay's Bay Center here on Narragansett Bay. I want to thank Attorney General Neronha, Senator Gu, Representative Courtfrand for being here to speak to this legislation that they've introduced to reform the Rhode Island Coastal Resources Management Council. I also want to recognize, and if you put your hand up, Representative Teresa Tanzi and Representative Alex Finkelman for championing this legislation as well and being with us today. There are also a number of groups that I would like to recognize who are here in support of reforming our state's troubled coastal agency. And I'm just going to list them briefly. The Ocean State Aquaculture Association, Rhode Island Saltwater Anglers Association, the Block Island Conservancy, the Committee for the Great Salt Pond, the Conservation Law Foundation, Protect Connecticut Coastline, Eat, Drink, Rhode Island, the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Rhode Island chapter, and the Commercial Fisheries Center of Rhode Island. Thank you all for being here. Reform of the Coastal Resources Management Council and of governance in all things coastal is Save the Bay's top legislative priority. This is about good government in the ocean state. The CRMC structure needs to go. It is a thick layer of politics that hangs over the professional staff of experts. The council causes delays in permitting. It invites abuse. There's no accountability. Council members are not held accountable for decisions that violate the law. A case in point, 4 sitting council members who voted to approve the council's, the Champlin's backroom deal remain on the council. No one is publicly defending this structure. I've not heard one person come out in public and say the council is very good for the agency or for the state of Rhode Island. No one is publicly defending it. Today, we call on the General Assembly to pass CRMC reform legislation and give Rhode Island a more professional, effective, and accountable coastal agency. And we call on the leadership of the House and Senate to move these bills and pass them into law. And so with that, I am very pleased to introduce the Attorney General of Rhode Island, Peter Neronha, who is sponsoring these bills. Thank you.
All right, welcome everybody. This is an incredibly important issue to the people of the state of Rhode Island that deserves, frankly, more attention than it has gotten. You know, we stand here in this incredibly beautiful spot, but as Rhode Islanders, sometimes we forget the value of what you see behind us and across the state, our beautiful shoreline. Now, I had the opportunity last week to drive a U-Haul van from St. Louis to Chicago, moving my son, one of my sons, from St. Louis to Chicago, and then the good fortune to drive with that son home to Rhode Island. All of that took about 3 days. And in the course of that travel, I spent time in Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. I'm sure I got this right. What came next after Ohio? Pennsylvania, New York, Connecticut. And by that point, we were so tired, we actually, everyone knows on 165, when you hit Beach Pond, you're in Rhode Island. Well, we thought we were in Rhode Island at some pond about 3 miles before we hit Beach Pond. And we celebrated, and then we realized we were still in Connecticut. What's my point? My point is, while those are all great states, they're not Rhode Island. They don't have what you see behind me and across the state. And it's incredibly important that we protect what we have. Not only because all of us here, everyone standing here, out there and up here appreciates this, and many, many Rhode Islanders do, but it's because it's one of the most important things that we have going for us. We will never be Boston as an economic hub. We have some real infrastructure problems that you don't need to you don't need me to remind you of. We have a healthcare system that, unless we take aggressive steps to fix it, is in a state of crisis. We have doctors who won't come here. We have doctors, for example, who are leaving, and other providers. The one thing that will attract the best and the brightest to Rhode Island right now is quality of life. And quality of life is what you see behind me. So, no matter where we are with the rest of our state of being, we should be protecting our coastline. But when it's our best attribute, we should be doing everything we can to protect it. And the way the law works right now, we're not doing that. The CRMC, as currently constituted, its time has passed. The days when non-experts, political appointees, appointed for whatever reasons that, when you look at the background of some of the appointees, is not readily apparent. We are not doing what's behind me justice, nor are we doing justice to the people of the state of Rhode Island. Rhode Islanders deserve a professional agency that can investigate and make decisions that then are transparent and can be appealed if necessary to Superior Court, and if necessary, all the way to the Supreme Court. We know from our history in recent years that the CRMC doesn't understand that that's how this should work. The professional staff does. They're outstanding. But the commission and the commissioners themselves too often don't. The amount of work that my office spends trying to fix the CRMC's poor decision-making is far too many. Those lawyers could be doing great work for the people of the state of Rhode Island if an agency like the CRMC was in good hands and was doing its job. That's not what we have right now. And there are too many examples to name them all. We've talked about Champlain's a lot, and I see some of my friends from Block Island here, and thank you for making the trip. I always say it's my second favorite island after Conanican Island. The Champlain's case was a disaster. It took far too long. What was behind it? An aggressive move by a large company to expand a marina beyond what the environment and what the environment deserved and what the people of Block Island wanted. And that's a trend that's happening all across Rhode Island right now. A consolidation of the marina industry that is wielding power that in the end, without proper regulation, will be to the disadvantage of Rhode Islanders. The Champlain's case, you all know it, is an example of why this must change. We see it in recent days with the Quinessa Country Club. Let's face it, the CRMC as presently constituted has so little reputation for aggressive enforcement that you build a seawall without ever getting a permit to do that work. And then afterwards, have the gumption to ask to change the law, change the rules, so what was illegal is now legal, and the commission is actually giving that notion some legs. Not the professional staff. Council. Thanks, Topher. They get it, but I appreciate it. You want me to keep going? And so we shouldn't need the Army Corps of Engineers to come in here and do our work. This is the way this should work, okay? They build a wall without permission. They get a notice of violation. They get an order to remove it. They don't remove it. The Attorney General joins the action. We go to court. We try to get a court order to remove it. We can't get the court order to remove it. Then we take it to the Supreme Court to try to get a court order to remove it. The answer is not to change the rules after the fact to try to make legal what is in the first place illegal. That is what is wrong with the way this works. The way to fix it doesn't cost any more money for those out there who are worried about expense. Doesn't cost any more money. You're actually getting rid of people instead of adding them. And what that will mean is a professional agency that can do its work without the interference of a council that frankly doesn't know what it's doing, or it is listening to people and voices that frankly it shouldn't be listening to. So we have an opportunity this year with this legislation, and I'm grateful to Senator Gu and Representative Portfriend and Save the Bay and all the other organizations that Topher mentioned that have come out so strongly for this legislation. The time is now. If we know one thing about our environment, we have ignored it for too long, and the chickens are coming home to roost. We need to take strong action to protect our environment, and we need a regulatory agency that can do that. The answer is to pass this bill and for the governor to sign it. So I want to thank you, Topher, for hosting us today, for being our wing person, Save the Bay, for being our wing person, our partner, in doing so much good work to protect the environment. But there's no more important bill in the House of Representatives and the Senate of the state of Rhode Island this year than this one. It's why it's the only bill that I testified on behalf of personally. We have an opportunity to fix what is clearly broken. And if we don't get it passed, the only conclusion we can draw is that the people who have the power to fix it don't care about it, and because they don't care about it, don't care about the interests of the people of the state of Rhode Island. And so thank you for giving me a few moments to speak, Topher, and I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Attorney General Neronha. I'm now going to introduce Senator Victoria Gu, who represents the communities along the South Coast and who know very well the impact of the CRMC as we know it and want to see it changed as well. So please welcome Senator Victoria Gu.
Thank you, Topher. I want to thank AG Neronha, Representative Korchmand, and the other organizations who came out to voice a strong support for CRMC reform. I wanted to echo AG Neronha's comments about the quality of life. And we are the ocean state, and this must be our top priority. Like Topher mentioned, I represent the southern coast of Rhode Island, westerly, and parts of Charleston and South Kingstown. People come from far and wide to enjoy our beaches, our salt ponds, and shoreline. It's a big reason why people stay here, the natural beauty. Also supports an estimated $5 billion tourism industry. Our shoreline and our environment is under threat from poorly planned development from many decades ago. Our septic systems and stormwater runoff have caused algae blooms and poor water quality, and one salt pond in my district has been closed to shellfishing for the past 20 years as a result. Now you combine that, the intensified development pressure with warmer ocean temperatures and rising sea levels. I'm worried, and we cannot take our environment for granted. Now, a bit of history. When the CRMC was first established through the General Assembly in 1971, their legislative findings said that poorly planned development had already contributed to the destruction of the natural environment, as I mentioned with our salt ponds in my area. And that the preservation and restoration of ecological systems shall be the primary guiding principle upon which environmental alteration of coastal resources shall be measured, judged, and regulated. Now, the council, which is a politically appointed body, is making decisions with major consequences for our future. But they're not required to have that expertise in coastal resources or environmental science. And so the issue comes up when the council sometimes undermines the highly qualified CRMC staff's recommendations, resulting in multiple lawsuits that the Attorney General's office has been involved in. Even though we're a small state with our 400 miles of coastline, there's a lot that CRMC has on its plate. When it was first established, maybe they're talking about docks and other commercial development. Now it has to work on shoreline access, determining rights of way, offshore wind, aquaculture, and long-term planning for climate change. We want people making those decisions to be qualified. They're really complex issues. The CRMC's structure and funding has not kept up with these demands. And I will say also, during the hearing in the Senate committee, it was pretty striking to me that aquaculture and fishermen, who are often on opposite sides of the issue on any permit or whatnot, they both agree that the current system is not working. So I think the question now is who is the system working for? I don't think it's working for Rhode Islanders, and we need this bill to make sure the CRMC can do its work to serve the people of Rhode Island. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gu. I want to add that the folks up here are all champions of something else that's in CRMC's purview, and that's shoreline access. All the legislators here, we passed an historic bill last year that guarantees our constitutional rights, and now the Attorney General and his team are defending a legal challenge to that. So we appreciate all three of you and all the legislators here for championing shoreline access. Finally, I want to introduce Representative Terry Cortfran, who stepped up to introduce this bill, and again with her co-sponsors, Rep. Finkelman, Rep. Tanzi. This is very important to every coastal community in the state, but I will say to every community in the state, because every Rhode Islander in one way or another touches Narragansett Bay and touches our coast and depends on the folks who harvest seafood and grow seafood. So it's very important that we have sort of more intensity, more commitment from our elected officials to take care of Narragansett Bay. And again, the most important step they can take now is to reform the CRMC. So, Representative Terry Cortfran, please come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Topher, and special thanks to you, Attorney General Neronha. I want to really thank you for personally coming out and testifying in the House hearing. I think that made a big difference. And I know I was running up the stairs. I got a text, your bill's coming up, and I walked in and you were at the table. And I was like, oh, I don't need to really say anything. And you did such an excellent job. I want to thank Senator Gu, too, my partner. We've been working on several shoreline access issues this past session. And this is, I work in the marine industry and the other part of my life and my professional life, and this is a very important bill to me too. I share the concerns about the consolidation of corporate interest in marina operations around the state. I've watched that been happening over the last 5 years or so. So I think this bill is very important. I don't understand, as somebody that's been active in environmental issues, I don't understand why CRMC is crafted and put together any differently than DEM. It should be the same. I don't understand this political process. It's inappropriate and it's outdated. And I think it's really important that we move this bill forward And I guess since I'm the last one up, I'll close by putting a pitch out to the organizations that are here today and really implore you to reach out to your membership and ask them to reach out to their individual legislators, because our colleagues in the House, and thank you to Rep. Finkelman and Rep. Tanzi for being here today. And Rep. Finkelman is asking me almost on a daily basis about where this bill is, so I know it's very important to the people of Jamestown. But to the organizations here, please implore your memberships to reach out to their individual legislators, because that's what moves the ball forward. And when reps start hearing from their constituents that this is important to them, I think we have a good chance of moving this forward. And so in closing, that would be my pitch, is that reach out to your constituency within your organizations and get them to reach out to their reps and senators and let them know that this is really important. And thank you, Save the Bay, for your advocacy on all the issues and for protecting the beautiful area right behind us, which is our economic, our premier resource in this state. So thank you. Thank you all for being here.
So the folks up here are happy to take any questions. And we'll also stick around for a few minutes as well to talk to anyone who wants to speak.
Could I ask the Attorney General to address the action? What role, if any, your office is playing? Can't you take any action?
Ed, the action by the federal government is not within our purview, but I applaud it. I'm grateful that the Army Corps has stepped up and seen the problem at Quinnesset. I will say that our office is looking at that matter very, very closely. And if we need to intervene in any action or bring an action, then we will do that. One of the disadvantages of the way the system is currently set up is that we're an intervener in these actions. We had to intervene in the action involving Champlain's because we don't represent the CRMC. They are represented by part-time private counsel. That is another one of the problems with the agency is currently set up. But we're tracking the Quinnesset situation very closely. And if there's an opportunity for my office to weigh in and get that thing turned around, which in my view is removal. Nothing short of removal is the appropriate action in that case. It simply can't be, it can't be acceptable that you violate the law by not getting a permit. You change the waterfront in that way, which not only impacts that waterfront area, lateral access to the shore, as I believe Topher pointed out recently, but also impacts, other shorelines in the immediate vicinity. And so it's a long answer to your question, but our involvement would be a heck of a lot easier if we had a professional agency without this political layer on top of it, which when they saw a concern, as the professional staffers have here, they would simply come to us to represent them and to be their partner in making sure the appropriate steps were taken. This makes it much harder as currently set up. And look, we are the litigating arm of state government. We are the public lawyers, and our client is the people of the state and the state itself. And so anyone else representing the state, as far as I'm concerned, in any situation, does the people of the state a disservice.
Carlos.
What are the main arguments that you're seeing being deployed against the reform legislation, and what are your responses to them?
Take that, Topher.
We have heard, and again, not in public testimony, but this is what we hear as we are in the halls of the State House. Number one, this is a radical reform. And to that I say the CRMC structure itself is radical and it's bad. So Rhode Island is an outlier. The other New England states that have coast, which is all but one, have coastal management agencies firmly planted in the executive branch. This would actually align Rhode Island with the other coastal states in the region. There's only one in the country that has something remotely close to this, and that's California. And I would say that that's not a good comparison to make. Second thing is cost. The only change in the bill that would affect cost is in effect a wash on cost, and that is replacing the private practice law firm that represents the council and is supposed to represent the staff at the same time. And that is inherently an internal conflict that exists in the structure. Replacing that private practice law firm with a full-time staff attorney or attorneys. Our coastal agency is way too important to not have a full-time staff attorney that's fully dedicated and focused on the business of the agency. So those are the two things that come up. This is not radical. This actually makes a lot of sense. Our current structure is radically bad. Any others? Okay, again, we will be around here for a few minutes to answer your questions. Thank you all for being here today. We appreciate your being here. And as Rep. Cortfriend said to all the groups assembled, please reach out to your membership and press hard for reform of our coastal agency. Thank you.